it rolling? Looks like it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Design in a nutshell is about asymmetry, right? So we want every part of this to be as different from everything else, in a sense, as possible. So one of the things we can think about, if we're doing a two-value design like this, right? So this would be your ink wash, your engraving, kind of two-value design. But it also can be the fundamentals of a good painting. One of the things you can think about is just the most basic element of having a difference in it is having not the same amount of white as you do black, right? That's just on the most elemental level, the difference that you can have. The more you have your black and white in balance, I'm using a raw umber against this very soft gray, but we're going to call it black and white. Right? So the closer you have those two things in balance, the more you have 50%, 50%, the harder it's going to be to have negative shapes and positive shapes being different from one another, have different weights of things all over the canvas. So there are principles of design, I think we could call them, or elements of design, where something will have a direction to it and want to travel the eye around the canvas and have it move at different speeds and in different ways throughout the entire painting. Okay, we want everything to feel kind of important and considered, and at the same time, we don't want it all treated with the same amount of detail anywhere, right? So we could start maybe by saying, okay, we're going to have just figure sort of a loose percentage. I might try 80% black on this one. Well, that's kind of a bold thing to do, right? But we'll go for something kind of bold. We could do 80% white just as easily, and then you'd have a design along the lines of what Armin Hansen had in his show, right? If you saw the Armin Hansen show. But maybe we'll just try dark. It feels, in the end, it feels about the same, and then all the same shapes are going to apply, but we'll see. So I might think about where my light might come in and where it won't. So I might lock in a big mass here, my darker shape. Do something very Gareth up here, because we were just looking at it and I love it so much. I'll say just for the tape, that's Gunther Garza, the Mexican modern master. So at this point, this quarter of the painting, we can think of it in terms of quarter of things. This quarter of the painting, all dark, okay? There's no other quarter then that I necessarily want to be all dark, probably, in this piece. So that I don't have two matching quarters anywhere, all right? So this quarter up here, we've got about 60% light in there, maybe 55, 60% light. That's going to be the lightest quarter in this whole piece. So right away then, this one also will not match any other quarters, just by virtue of that. I think I like this little shape that's starting to happen down here. Broke off. I'm thinking about how are you moving through the painting, okay? So direction is one of the things. Another thing I'm going to think of is a point of highest tension, okay? And in the most conventional design, if we split the difference from the center of the painting and the edge of the painting, we have a mark that'll be about here, and then the corner from the center to the edge is about here, and over here is about there. We end up with a circle kind of here, right? That splits the difference between being the center of the canvas and being the edge of the canvas. In conventional design, we put our focal point or focal points or points of greatest attention on those areas of the canvas, and then sort of point some other lines at them so that we have this highest contrast, brightest colors, other elements feeding you into that, and that would be a focal point design. That may be a little unfamiliar to you guys because I don't like focal point designs. Although they're strong, but paintings that point you to a focal point, I feel like you can read the whole painting a little too quickly, and they can be hard to live with sometimes. Not hard to live with, but you can get tired of living with it.
What's it called? It was like a novelist.
So the opposite of a focal point design would be an all-over design?
Yeah, it would be sort of a meandering design where you're just kind of like looking around at everything, right? And I like to sort of split the difference in that. So Jackson Pollock would be sort of just pattern, right?
Right.
And there's not a design to that. There's not any point that has more attention than any other point. It's just kind of just energy.
Yeah.
And that makes sense too from a just point of view of like, okay, what energy do we create on this one versus this one versus this one, or this part up here versus there. This painting with the fish has a little bit of that. The one that's the school fish has a little bit of that energy field kind of quality to it. But there are other elements of design in there, but we won't get into that. So here I'm looking at, we have this large resting space, okay, at this point. We have a smaller space which sort of channels because of this, and this sort of pours in almost like a funnel into this space, which gets smaller. As we get into that, the eye starts traveling more quickly. We have a big kind of slow space, and then it gets channeled into that. Now, if I made this with a bunch of really rough edges, and I filled it in with color bars that were horizontal, that would slow us down through that passage. I want the eye to move at different rates as it goes through different parts of the canvas, okay? So just as important as where the eye goes in the canvas is how quickly it gets there, how long it stays there, and where it goes from there. Okay. So we're talking about that circle and putting a point of attention on there. If you go outside of that circle, you start to get more bold, edgy design, okay? It's also more chancy design, it's more likely to fail. If you go inside of that circle, you start to get safer, more conservative design. It's less likely to fail and less likely to be bold and thrilling. So that's why that circle has become what it is. It's sort of as far as you can go without being very daring, without failing a lot. Right about that edge, you get some drama, but you also have a little bit of sort of security in that you're not throwing somebody way over to the the wall of the canvas somewhere and trying to make that work as your design, because that's very challenging. Right?
But if you nail it.
But if you nail it, it's so exciting. So what I'm going to encourage is, as you build up your ability to do successful designs, start playing outside of that circle and fail. Because once in a while you do something really cool. And throw everything else away if you want. That's what I do. Throw it all away. Usually if I throw something away, it's because it was too safe. Nothing frustrates me more than if I do something safe. Trying to keep as much dark as possible in this, so pushing more dark down into here, and but also to keep all the sides different from one another too. Right now there's sort of geometry to this, but it's just off of geometry. It's sort of organic here, it's more geometric there. There are no real lines yet. There's a bit of a line right here, which I kind of like. I might try a bit of a line.
So that is a line.
That's a line.
Okay.
But right now there's no real involved calligraphy anywhere. And calligraphy can be a really beautiful part of design. It's transition from light to dark. It's an area that can hold the viewer's eye in that spot, and it is the part of your design where you're going to have to use your draftsmanship. So it is the part that is going to be describing what the subject is. I can turn these shapes into almost any kind of subject I want. I'm not going to take out the almost. I can make this into any subject I want to make it into, okay? At this point, it's just where I'm going to mask the darks and lights. But what the specifics are of this edge, is that going to be the rim lining of a person's sleeve? You know, is it going to be the space between two buildings? The specifics of that shape are going to be what defines the narrative, the form in the painting, okay? So that's where we're going to use our draftsmanship. It's going to be in the calligraphy of these areas. If these are buildings and this is a person there, and her back is catching the light, and so she's kind of framed like this, the specifics of these edges are going to tell the entire story of what that, well, what's going on there, right? So, so that's where we're going to use our draftsmanship, is in the calligraphy areas and where these things are all kind of coming together. So I might just add a little bit more suggestion of calligraphy into this. And in doing so, now when I make this into a painting at some point, which I will do, and we'll try and maybe do a video of that too. But when I make this into a painting, I know not what that calligraphy is going to be at this point, but I know that I want to have some there, okay? A little bit. I think in this one, I might try and pull us down over here. It's just outside of that circle. On that circle, we have this point. We just miss it. That's just inside. This is just inside the circle. So we have a couple of points inside the circle that are kind of secondary points of tension. And then I'm going to take my greatest point of attention and I'm going to pull that outside of the circle. So we're hopefully kind of pulling you around through that a little bit and down into this area here. Now in this area, I'm going to figure out a way to line you up here. So the bottom of this corner against the bottom of this one, I want that to form a line to here, okay? Now, I don't have to draw a line there to make your eye move along those lines. I can automatically find those lines and move them, right? And if I wanted to, I could put a little notch right here in this canvas, right at the edge, and really complete it. Mm-hmm. Now, I may justify that as being a little bit of a windowsill that's catching some light on this building, or I may justify that as being a bird that's flying through this scene, or I may justify that as being a leaf on a plant that's just reaching outside of the shadow that the tree is sitting in and just catching that little bit of light, or any other thing I want to make that into, right? But when you look at good paintings and you see a little spot like this, and I can show you some later, think about why that's there. And usually it's there for something like this, just to re-emphasize that line, okay? And another thing we want to think about is when you make that line, it doesn't have to be a perfect line, it doesn't have to be a line that points exactly to your focal point. It can point almost to it, it can be almost a perfect line. And those things are usually a little more successful artistically than if you go so obliquely at it and have a perfect line lined up. Be a little bit off, be a little organic with it. It's a little more fun for the eye to have to work at it and decode it. This is all very geometric. I think I looked at so much Gunther Gerza this morning already.
Yeah, very.
That we have that very geometric kind of thing going on. So I think what I'll do at this point is try and change that up a little bit, so that I'm geometric somewhere, and I'll set that against something that's a little bit more organic and freeform. Okay. Not that a geometric design doesn't work, it does, obviously, but just to try and pay a little more interest. So one thing that was starting to happen, the reason I'm bringing this down here is that I had two light things that stuck up on either side of that started to be mirrors of one another. And one thing I want to look for in our design is making sure that we don't, repeat shapes accidentally throughout. You're going to.
Yeah.
Because our brains do that. Our brains are always trying to give order to things and make things static and make things predictable and make things symmetrical. And we're going to have to be fighting that all the time. And it's the difference in something that is designed versus something where the design is not considered is how symmetrical everything is. Because when design is not considered, we make architecture, we make things that will stand up and can be replicated and flipped and mirrored, and we'll have a positive shape that fits perfectly into a negative shape over here, or is the same as the negative shape over there. So we want different sizes, different shapes, different edges, different amounts of flow and different speeds to everything. And when I have two things reaching up on either side of this, I know, okay, I'm learning to watch for that kind of stuff, so now I don't repeat that markup over here. Right now, this shape is very different from this one, very different from this one. There are no shapes in here that are sort of threatening one another with being too much the same, right? This aspect is quite different from this one. It's different a little bit in shape. It's different in mass. So that's kind of good. I might try and do something a little more organic. Like I think of Alphonse Mughal with this stuff, where you have these almost more watery kind of shapes or something like that. Let's see if I can do something like this close to the bottom, that screw sticking out. So here I'm going to round that. I'll take this out and round it. I'll take that and round it here. We'll go from a bit of a calligraphy, which is a long, elongated shape, to a line, which is a thinner shape, back to calligraphy, which will have some negative shapes in it. So we'll have some orphan lights within that dark, and we'll have some orphan darks that break off of that are surrounded just by light, and some that almost break off that are sort of peninsulas, right? And then somewhere we'll connect that up into a mass, so that we're going from a mass into calligraphy, into line, back into calligraphy, and then maybe back into mass, maybe not, right? That's one of the things we're looking for in good design. It doesn't have to be in every good design, but it is a nice thing to find in design, or something where a shape goes from not an object, but a shape of a value. Goes from mass to calligraphy to line to calligraphy, maybe back to mass.
And
So
calligraphy is,
calligraphy, I should define all these words because I'm just kind of using my own language here.
is it more organic
But
or
it's,
line?
it doesn't have to be organic, but it's going to be more involved. So what I'm calling calligraphy is a place that is sort of a shape that has negative shapes coming into it. It's a little thicker than a line. So it's sort of splitting the difference between line and shape. I'm going to use that for our definition, working definition of calligraphy. Now, as I get into really painting this, by the way, I can have a direction to this mass. I can do it with brush strokes. I can do it with subtle color changes. If we look at that Gunther Gerzo, there are some places where there's no direction to it, some places where there's a strong direction there. He's got little subtle color changes, even if not value changes, or very subtle value changes, moving through a particular mass like this. He's giving direction to it. That's different than if you give direction to it this way, or diagonally if you put it all different directions. It's all going to have different energy, and those things can be considered as early on as this. Just if I scribble it on sideways, it gives a horizontal mass to it, which I'm quite liking, by the way. But if I wanted to change that and just throw a vertical there, that's cool too. Right now it's got this sort of horizontal, and then it stops with this vertical. I like that feel of energy just moving through and then down and back over. So it's one of the things that I'm thinking of even this early in the design. And I'll maybe want some middle shapes in here. I want some hard, clean edges. getting at? I really want this to be hard, high contrast kind of edit. It doesn't have to be so hard going down into this. And I can break that energy kind of horizontally there and go up to vertical here. So we're transitioning from this kind of horizontal energy into a vertical one as we get down to here. So we come kind of slowly at it and then we sort of slam right into it at the last second. A lot of times design is doing the opposite of that. But I thought just for this one kind of fun to do it the other way. The more I can break convention, and that's usually fun to do that. So as I just sort of drink in this design a little bit, there are two things that are not really thrilling me too much. This shape right here, and maybe just because it's so similar to what's going on here, just at a different scale, but it feels a little empty and not in the way that I want it to be empty. And maybe it's just that it's a light, maybe it just can be dark. Let me see if I can break that somehow. And maybe give a little energy to it that won't detract too much from over there. Really pulling this design way off of outside of that circle, and that's quite fun. I'm going to give a little bit of structure against all of this organic stuff that I was trying to do there. And I think I've replicated this too much. I'll take even more of that out. And I'll emphasize this diagonal a little bit more than I had. It was a little more vertical. So it was matching that a lot. Now if I pull it in here, hopefully I can carry that flow through this way.
Within, now you've got your, let's say you had your design, let's say you hadn't decided to make any more changes.
Okay.
Within that dark, you're going to have texture, color.
Yeah,
Showing
even
movement.
subtle value changes.
Okay.
But this will sort of hold together, you know, within, if I were doing just two values. Now generally my sketches will go to three values before I make it into a painting. But for just talking about what makes a good shape, I think this is really useful. So right now I'm feeling pretty good about this whole thing. It's just, you know, overall decent shape.
And the reason you think this is a good shape is because there isn't any part of it that's the same as any other.
Energy's different all over the place, and that's a big part of it. Another big part of it is that I feel it has motion to it, and it has a different sort of quality of energy throughout. You know, so it gets very complicated in here. That's set against a big resting space, which is sort of very soft horizontal direction to it, which comes up against a very fast, hard, directed vertical, which feeds over in a very slow, broken kind of way where your eye is really forced to be doing the work to make that leap over to here, to make that leap over to here. So that's going to slow us down quite a bit. Even over to here, we can kind of just miss the focal point that way. If we just miss, it's generally a little bit better. You know,
And where's your focal point?
Well, the greatest point of greatest attention is right in here. So when I do this as a painting, I'm going to have my strongest color contrast here, and have my strongest value contrast there, and have my brightest colors there, and hopefully I'm going to have part of the story I'm trying to tell there. So if the story is all about what's going on in this building, probably should make that my greatest area of interest in painting. Okay?
My eye goes off the corner on the right side.
Over here?
Yeah.
That's interesting you said it, because that's the part that's not satisfying me too much right now. Because everything else I'm feeling pretty good, maybe not too good about this little triangle here, and not great about this. So let me keep looking at
I
this.
actually like that shape, but it goes there.
I like the shape, but yeah, I'm having a feeling about it myself. So that's the part I'm kind of looking at the most. And I think maybe it's a little too complicated there. And maybe if we try and simplify that, we may not grab as much attention over there, and that might work a little bit better. So let me see. Just putting a little chirp on there. Let it sit for a second and then I can wipe it. I definitely like that better. With this being a little more organic and less predictable now, I'm not feeling a need for all of that organic stuff there. I might try a little bit of a light spot. I don't have much going on by the way of line. I don't need it in every one. I have a bit of a white line coming up here. I have a bit of a dark line moving into that. Bit of lines in here, so I guess we're okay on that. Not that we need it all the time, but I just wanted to kind of make it part of that demonstration of what line can do.
See, Marion's Canyon paintings.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right. It could
I
work.
do too.
It could work as an urban scene, or where these are buildings. It could work as a red rock scene. Have something like this. It could be a river and trees down here catching some light against
That's
this
what I
light.
see.
But it's what you see because that's what you've been painting recently,
Yeah.
right? I may take this to Austin and find, that's what the bridge looks like downtown, or for all I know. So I haven't been to downtown Austin before. So we're talking about putting one little notch of light up here. Let's see if we like it better or not. I already feel that direction going on, coming this way, but if we do this, you know what, I think it will make it too much about this spot down there. I can put it here, we'll just look at it, but I'm planning on taking it back out. Yeah, I think we're already going there, and I like this shape kind of more just as a simple shape. Don't ask me why, I'm not sure why, no, but I do, and I just try to listen to that voice, I think it's important just to listen to that. I'm feeling a little bit of a twinning off of this coming these different directions at the same height, so I think what I'll do is just bring one of them up. Doesn't matter too much which one, but if I make this one a little bit bigger, what happens is that this space starts competing with the scale of this space. But I can make this one a little bit bigger without really competing with this yet, if I just do a little bit. So that's why I chose this one instead of that one. Yeah, you learned your lesson.
Wow, that added a lot.
Yeah, you did.
That's amazing.
The dot. What do you do? No, just the line.
I'm gonna like that. If I do a painting that looks like this,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna like the painting. All I have to do now is make sure I like the color, which is pretty easy for me. So I think we'll stop it here.
Okay.